Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
It's our custom to go around at this point and introduce ourselves. And before we do so, is there anyone that's new here today or first or second time? Welcome. Feel free to hang out after the speaker. We have a short social hour. Meet some of our members. My name's David Lewis.
My name is Howard D. Ports.
My name is Andre.
I'm Carl Wolf.
My name is Rich Aronat.
My name is Barry Friedman.
I'm Scott.
My name is Tony Pasqua.
My name is Gary Pedler.
My name is Jesse.
I'm G. Schultz.
I'm Kei Matsuda.
Greg Murdow.
I'm Chris.
My name's Greg.
I'm Steve.
David.
My name is Jay Corbett.
John. My name is Ray Dyer.
I am Don Weaver.
My name is Dennis.
I'm George.
Peter.
My name is Mark.
Oswaldo.
They are.
My name is Tage Lydia.
Richard Azzolini.
My name is Jerry Jones.
My name is Harley Shapiro.
My name is David.
I'm Richard.
I'm Jerry.
Jim Stewart.
I'm Jack.
I'm Peter.
Stephen.
Jim.
My name is Don.
Mike Labrie.
Marvin Snow.
My name is Bill.
My name is Gary.
I'm Max Cole.
Miss anybody? Welcome. Our speaker this morning is Hozan Alan Senauke. Did I pronounce that right?
Senauke, like Milwaukee.
Senauke, right? Alan is the vice-abbot of the Berkeley Zen Center. Since 1991, he's worked with the Buddhist Peace Fellowship, where he presently serves as senior advisor. He continues to work as a socially engaged Buddhist activist, most recently founding the Clear View Project, developing Buddhist-based resources for relief and social change. In another realm, Alan has been a student and performer of American traditional music for more than 40 years. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you, David. It's an honor to be with you here this morning. It's really nice. I really enjoy talking after we've been sitting. It just changes my energy and changes the energy in the room, so it feels very good. I've not been here to this center, which is blessed with ample free parking on a Sunday, but it's a wonderful room. By way of introduction, I'm thinking of, for some reason, the history is kind of flooding into my mind this morning. I used to work, we had a printing collective about a block and a half from here. You know where Modern Times is? Before it was Modern Times, it was, I think, the San Francisco Printing Collective, and then before that it was People's Press and Fitz Printing. So that was it was a movement print shop that we started in 1972. So it's kind of amazing the years get by. As some of you, if I look around, I see some of us are in the same age cohort. So I lived in the Castro, I lived around this neighborhood, and I worked there, so there's all these memories come back. I was also talking with David and Howard. My recollection of the history of the Gay Buddhist Fellowship, were any of you there sort of at the beginning? No one in the room here now. It sort of formed out of a group of gay men who came together at a Buddhist Peace Fellowship Institute that we had it was either 92 or 93 in the summer in Oakland. It was a week-long institute, and that group was so intense. They sort of, for hours a day, they just sat in a circle, really talking about their practice and their situation in life. And out of that, I think these meetings began. That's my recollection of the history, which may or may not be accurate. And then Gay Buddhist Fellowship was shortly after they asked if they could be an affiliate of Buddhist Peace Fellowship. And whether you know it or not, it's still listed as such in Turning Wheel. It's a rather tenuous relationship, but it feels good to be a part of that, to feel a part of that history. Over the years since then, I had spoken several times when I think the group was meeting at 340 Page, which is now the hospice facility near San Francisco Zen Center. And while I was trying to think about what to talk on today, I went back through just sort of records of talks and happened to find what I believe is the last time I spoke to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship, which, if those of you who are taking notes, it was January 12th, 1997. And I looked at the opening and I thought, oh, this is pretty good. I don't remember it. None of you are going to remember it, so I can use it again.
I was there and I remember.
You were there.
It was all about enlightenment.
Yeah, it's going to be different, actually. Same opening, different subject. I'll just say, I'm not particularly interested in enlightenment. I'm interested in enlightened activity. I'm interested in how one lives. I don't even want to use that word. How one lives an awakened life. What the implications of that are. And so that was one piece that fell into line. And then this morning, and I will get to this because I think it really fits with this notion of awakened activity. This morning, as I was obsessively checking my email, lying in bed still, I received an email with very clearly written description and request from friends in Chiang Mai. And these are friends who work within the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community, and I hadn't heard about this particular event. It's a large community, mostly in the Thai community, but also includes Westerners from the States and from Europe. And they held a march, or they attempted to hold a march on February 21st, which was essentially blocked and attacked. Have any of you heard of this? You have? Oh, that's good, because I hadn't gotten this, even though it was friends who were involved. So I'll leave you with this document, and I can give you an email. There's ways in which you can help, I think. And that's kind of makes concrete. I think it'll make concrete the notion of enlightened activity. So, in 97, I began with this poem by Ryokan, the 18th century Japanese monk, priest. He was in the Soto Zen tradition, which is our tradition, some of your tradition, but he was he lived alone. He didn't take up the formalities of temple practice. He was a poet and a calligrapher and a lover of all beings. So this poem says, "If these sleeves of my black robe were only wider, I'd shelter all the people in this up and down world. If these sleeves of my black robe were only wider, I'd shelter all the people in this up and down world." I think this is the essential teaching. This is an essential teaching of awakened intention, awakened activity. Ryokan was famous. He took this very literally. Some of you may know this. He was famous on a sunny day. He would go through his robes and he would pick out the lice and he'd put them out in the sun to warm. And then when they were sufficiently warmed, he would take them, he'd put them back in his robes. I don't think my practice is that good. But this is the kind of compassion and identity that he felt with all of life, all of existence, to take care of whatever was in your world, whatever was in your surroundings. So, his black sleeves were quite wide enough to be home to God knows how many lice. But you can't put an infinite number of people in there except by using them, except by engaging with each person that you meet. So, to me, this is the function. This is what evolves, I think, from our meditation, is taking care of these sentient beings, and evolves by a very direct method, because in the meditation, the first being that I have to take care of is this one. If I'm not able to turn towards myself, if I'm not able to see myself as a being who must be sheltered and taken care of, then it's going to be very difficult to take care of others. Sometimes, though, it's not that simple or linear. Sometimes, because of the wounds and difficulties that we have, it may be that this self is not the first that I can take care of. Too close. Too complicated a relationship. I may have to learn how to do that by taking care of other beings that I meet. There is no... That's the great thing, I think, about Buddhism. Even though, if you look at Christianity, well, it's all kind of there in this one book, which is pretty long, but not very long. In Buddhism, there's shelf after shelf after shelf of teaching. But none of it is an instruction manual. None of it really tells you what to do. None of it gives you, no book no teacher is going to tell you personally what you have to do to wake up. They can't, because it's your work. So I want to suggest a kind of a vow, an approach that I've been working with for a number of years, and sort of where it came from. Of course, we have an instruction from the Bodhisattva and from all of our teachers. The Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, I guess there's not one up here, is in Chinese, that's Guanyin. In Japanese, that's Kanzeon, which translates as one who sees the cries of the world. There's a kind of synesthesia there. All of the senses are functioning. So Guanyin, he or she, and I think there's some ambiguity about that if you look at the figures, takes in the suffering of each being very directly. And in some of the iconography, so there's various iconographies of Guanyin. There's the 1,000-armed Guanyin, with sort of like a fan of arms and hands. Each hand has an eye in it, and each hand is holding some mysterious tantric tool. It's like all of the pieces of a spiritual Swiss Army knife, 1,000 of them. Each eye taking in what is in front of the Bodhisattva, and each hand holding the tool that is just the right tool to help a suffering being wake up. Other forms of the iconography show Guanyin with a head that is either has 4 faces or 11 faces. And the way that's usually explained is in order to take in all of the suffering of the world, to turn towards it without ignoring other suffering, Guanyin's head split into those different facets so that it was capable of taking in things in the full surround. Now, this, of course, is a mighty challenge for us. I think we can. I just try to keep the intention of looking at the person who's in front of me, and to be with that person as we're engaging, and to turn towards them, which is often harder than it sounds, because I may not like them. This is what I've been studying for and teaching for about 8 or 10 years, what I call the Dharma of Martin Luther King, who from very early on was preaching about loving your enemies, which is a teaching from the Gospels. And what he says was, you love everyone, but you don't necessarily like everyone. You love everyone for, we would say, because each being is Buddha, or because each being is in the image of God. So you love them. You don't necessarily like them. You don't necessarily like what they do, or what they do to you. You don't necessarily like the systems that they are embedded in. But because of the value of each life, you love them, just as Ryokan loved and took care of the lice that were in his robes. So this is turning towards. in a teaching of our Zen ancestor Dogen, this sort of the father of the Soto Zen tradition in Japan, he wrote, "Those who in past lives were not enlightened will be enlightened." Then he says something interesting. Save, in this life, save the body, which is the fruit of many lives. Before Buddhas were enlightened, they were the same as we. Enlightened people of today are exactly as those of old. This is, again, part of the rationale or the reasoning of turning towards. I was giving a class last week and somebody with some annoyance said, this is all just saying the same thing. Why do all these koans and stories, it's just like the same thing over and over again? And I thought about that, and well, it's true. It's because we're kind of thick-headed. And, it's like you say the same thing, you keep trying it from different angles. Our teachers keep trying it from different angles. And then, sometimes it's said at just the right moment, in just the right way. It's like, oh, right. And then we wake up. If only for that short time, but it stays. So, turning towards suffering. And I would say, I really like the teaching of Thich Nhat Hanh's when he says, suffering is not enough. It all doesn't boil down to suffering. That's this very grim and sort of almost medieval view of Buddhism. It's not that all life is suffering. It's really, the essence is that all life is impermanent, that things change. And the suffering comes from the fact we don't really like them to change, We don't like the good things to change. We want the bad things to change. But they just change. As Suzuki Roshi said, he had this watchword, not always so. So there's also joy. And you don't, if there's joy in front of you, you don't turn away from that and go look for somebody who's suffering. That's really dumb. If there's joy, be joyous and don't hold on to it. So, part of what I would call enlightened activity, it's marked by vow, by this bodhisattva vow, this bodhisattva intention, the sort of prime directive, I vow to save all sentient beings. There's some concrete way in which this is manifested in my life. I've lived at Berkeley Zen Center now for 25 years. I live with my family. Our house, we kind of like living more or less in a fishbowl. People are always coming in and out of our house, and we've been there so long. It's kind of people come and they unload whatever's going on in our kitchen, and that's okay. It's like a great privilege, to allow for that intimacy. At the same time, there are people who are very worrisome. There are people whose suffering is really great. There's people who are homeless or nearly homeless. There are people who find themselves diagnosed with very serious medical conditions or fatal. We've taken care of quite a number of people who, in our Sangha, who have lived not just in but around Berkeley Zen Center. And our vow, I remember one friend who was a resident and she had pancreatic cancer. And she was really thinking of going to live with her brother in Alabama. But she didn't know anybody in Alabama. Her community was here. And, so I went with someone to her hospital room and said, why don't you stay here? We will take care of you to the end. And that's what we did. She actually lived 3 more years. But there are people who want things, we could do that. There are people who want things that you can't give them what they think they want. There are people who are really, really poor, and you have to figure out how to be of help. So, in conversation with my wife, we came upon this principle, which has worked pretty well for us. It's not foolproof, and it is certainly not doubt resistant. But the principle is, I will not abandon you. So somebody comes, they're broke, they think they're going to lose their home. We may or may not be able to give them a loan or give them some money to get through. We may or may not, depends on what our situation is, which is pretty marginal. But not abandoning means, please come and share what is going on in your life with us, and we will listen and reflect. We will always do that. And sometimes I say to people, when it gets really bad, just call me anytime, day or night. And sometimes they do. And sometimes it's not convenient. And sometimes you wish, why doesn't she get over it, But the vow turns us towards that person and towards what I think is the central practice of awakened activity, which is just to be present with someone. And, I'm sure all of you know that can be the most precious thing. Sometimes it's exactly what someone needs. That is hearing the cries of the world as embodied in this single person who's in front of you. And I would say, if I take it we could say take it a little further, or also take it a little further inside. In the Platform Sutra of the 6th ancestor, Huineng, which is a wonderful text, he has his own version of the Bodhisattva vows. And his version of the Bodhisattva vow, the first one, is a little different. That vow is, I vow to save the innumerable sentient beings of my mind. So it's to recognize, while we have this external practice of meeting each person who is in front of us, we also have the internal practice of meeting each person who arises within our own mind and within our own life. By learning to meet each person outside, we develop a capacity to meet each being of our mind. By learning to meet each being of our mind, we develop the capacity to meet each being supposedly outside. And gradually we come to see, although here in this room we occupy 40 or 50 seemingly separate bags of skin, the life that we share is shared. And we share it also with all of those various beings that arise within us in the conditions of our life, when we get scared, when we get hurt, when we see, it's really interesting. Even in those of us who are in our 60s, we still can recognize this pained child who is still very much alive in there, right? And how do we meet that being without abandoning him or her? But turning towards them, and turning towards them with sometimes just unconditional love. And unconditional love may include the setting of boundaries, just as one would set boundaries for a child. You set boundaries for a child without in any way it compromising your love for that child. To accept them, because when you don't accept somebody, a sentient being of your mind, if you push them away, you're feeding their suffering. You give it fuel to continue and exist. The same thing, if you reject someone who's before you suffering, you can pretty much guarantee that you're reinforcing a pattern of rejection that's happened again and again. So how do we turn towards beings? How do we see them in the same way that we see ourselves? And how do we see ourselves in the same way that we see others? This is what we encounter, even as we sit. You sit, I just noticed as we were sitting, it's like the first 15, 20 minutes was really quiet and still. And then maybe your legs started to hurt, or it got a little boring, or, it's like you felt some urge to move. This various, and that's kind of that's small potatoes discomfort, right? Compared to realms of suffering we can experience. But just to encounter even those subtle energies in yourself and be able to meet them and accept them without judgment. If you have to move, move. It's fine. If you can say, okay, I'm going to try not to move, see where that goes, that's useful as well. There's behind this gentleman, there's Kanzeon by the window. I just saw her. The white ceramic. And is there one? Oh, there too. Aha. So there you go. With multi faces, right? I can't quite see. It looks like
multi arms.
Yeah. So this, I think, is our practice. This is the practice of enlightened activity. So this morning, receiving this email from my friends, maybe should I read you a little bit of it? Yeah. The second annual Gay Pride Parade was scheduled for February 21st in Chiang Mai a popular destination in northern Thailand. It was canceled when parade participants were locked in the compound where they were gathering and subjected to violence by the Rak Chiang Mai 51 political group, also known as Red Shirts, for their attire. Parade participants were hurt, harassed, and prevented from leaving or entering the compound for 4.5 hours, while 150 police just looked on. The Red Shirts used a truck with bullhorns and speakers to curse and yell at parade participants locked inside, particularly attacking gay and transgender people. The gates of the temple next door were also locked, blocking access to the compound on all sides, preventing anyone from joining the parade organizers and participants inside. 30 other people who could not enter the compound sat down and performed silent meditation in front of the temple to demonstrate support for those locked inside, including both Thais and foreigners. The meditators displayed signs that said, "Peace, diversity brings peace, and celebrate diversity." The red shirts surrounded the meditators, cursed and yelled. Water, cups, fruit, and rocks were thrown at the meditators. They did not respond and continued to meditate. Throughout the whole incident, 150 police present, standing both inside and outside the locked gates, did nothing to intervene or stop the red shirts from violence or from locking the parade participants in. When asked by members of the meditating group sitting outside for protection, the police refused, said they didn't have enough to cover the sitting group, and instead asked the group to go home. In addition, the police were encouraging the gay pride organizers locked inside to give in to the demands of the red shirts to apologize for organizing a pride parade as a way to resolve the situation. So that's just a basic sketch. And in response, Thailand's gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender groups are forming the new network Sao Sao It Saturday the 21st to address the violence tolerated by police inaction at the canceled parade. And they're asking individuals, organizations in Thailand, internationally, to write letters of support, and there's addresses here. And so I say, there are various ways that things come to us, through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, through email, through Facebook. When I got this, the feeling was very, and there were some photographs also, the feeling was very visceral and direct. And at the moment that I got this, these were the beings in front of me, the beings who were locked in, and then to really observe the faces of these people wearing the red shirts, and to try to put myself in the place of the kind of hatred and fear that they felt, which I'm not entirely successful in doing it, but I know that I have that capacity within me. Not certainly not towards my friends who were sitting inside, but in another circumstance. I could have that capacity towards them, towards the red shirts. How do we meet that? So when I got this, it's like, oh, this is what's in front of me, and I thought, what am I going to do about this? There's not a lot I can do about it from this distance, but I thought, oh, this is, where am I going this morning? It's like, this is the right moment. I've been given a place to bring this. So I bring this to you as a way of sharing our connection, to share this not turning away. And so it seems like a really fitting way to kind of tie up or make sense of what I'm calling awakened activity. I think that if you look at the fourth noble truth of the Buddha, which is the Eightfold Path, this is the way you don't become a Buddha. This is the way you are a Buddha, is by living in just the ways that were outlined in the Eightfold Path. By living a moral life, a meditative life, a principled life, a kind life, one that sees yourself in connection to all beings, and that recognizes with compassion the places where you feel separation, where I feel separation. That's precisely the edge of practice. It's not like, oh, we're going to sit here for half an hour and then we're all going to put on our rose-colored glasses and go outside and everything's going to look really swell. Yeah, it's not. But to understand that the potentiality for waking up is always within the realm of possibility. It leaves us with this really big Dharma question. That question is, how? Not how good am I or how still can I sit on the meditation cushion, but how can I live to help people and to help myself wake up? That's the number one question, I think. So I think I'll stop there and leave time for some, because I like to have some discussion or questions before we close around noon. So we have 10, 15 minutes, I think, for conversation. So anything that's on anyone's mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You brought some much wonderful lessons for us to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, you talked about it. I guess I still have a question, and maybe this is a lifelong question.
That's good.
Trying, for those that are involved in relationships with lots of people and maybe in a position where you come in contact with lots and lots of people that might come from different backgrounds, and you try to be compassionate, you try to be open, you try not to ignore people or turn them away, and there's still that problem of the edge of being compassionate and unconditional love with not becoming codependent or enabling,
right,
and needing to set boundaries and tough love, and it's how do you figure it out?
You don't. You don't figure it out. You try different things, and you keep in mind the wish not to, basically, is like the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. If you can, you just keep that in mind, but the conundrum is, you don't know what's going to be helpful or not in a situation. But what you can know is what your motivation is. If you can be clear on your motivation. So, I really try to watch my energy. I'm an excitable person. So, and I would say for many of us in this room, we were probably brought up in some dimension of Judeo-Christian cultural setting, right? Not all of us, I would assume, but some of us, most of us. So within that, there is, there's this very strong prophetic tradition. That's in us too. So the quest for justice is in us deeply. What I've noticed in myself is that's where I get in trouble is not in belief of justice, it's in thinking I'm channeling something prophetic in my righteous anger. Right? It almost never works. So I need, before I act, I try to look at my energy. And if I see that it's caught in this kind of righteousness, or there's a lot of, or if I have this sense of urgency, like I've got to do this now, I've got to say this to this person now, that's usually a good moment to reflect, which doesn't mean I don't say it at some point, but I need to clarify my energy. So to clarify my intention, that's where I would start. Yeah.
Where I live, I come across a lot of panhandlers, people on the street, and just every day. And it's always been a struggle for me how to hold these people compassionately without necessarily being fully engaged. And I'm just curious. I assume you probably run across this too.
Well, yeah, I think all of us do.
Yeah. Do you have any insight or
I think that's a really good test of not turning away. It's like a real acid test for that. Let's see, I was downtown a couple times this week. I hardly ever go to San Francisco. And there was a guy in a wheelchair who looked very bedraggled and kind of pretty funky, sitting on it was on Bush Street, and he just had this sign that said "Hungry." And one day, I walked by him, and I realized I was walking by him, and I realized it didn't feel too good, but I had a lot of forward motion. That's where I was going that day. And then the day before yesterday, I saw him again, same place. And then I realized, okay, I should stop. So, I gave him $1. But I think, look at your energy in those interactions and see where you want to turn away. See where you feel, where I feel, I'll just say for myself, where I feel, in a sense, impinged upon. And if I can notice that in time, if the forward energy is too much, I'm not noticing it until I'm already past the person. If I can notice it in time, then, again, at the very least, I can make eye contact. I could say good morning or good afternoon. I could say, I may say, I'm sorry I can't give you anything today. And that's a question, too, whether you can or can't. And then sometimes, often, I do. I try to make that, I try to keep that in mind. But I notice that I'm not entirely able to do that. So I try to notice the turning away. And also, I try not to judge myself for it. I think this is a really important part. Not to judge yourself for it, but to ask, how do I want to be? So that's probably about as close as I can get. Yeah.
I think you've struck on something that we all get trapped in. This particular example is a highlight of it, is our ambivalence. I think we have terrible ambivalence towards certain things, and homeless people would be one of them probably, or panhandlers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's healthier to either have a definitive, no, I can't help you.
Right.
Or engage, sometimes I'm in the mood and I actually aim for them.
Right.
And it feels really good. It gets rid of the ambivalence.
Right. I try not to ignore them. That I really, that's why I say, it's good to make eye contact, to exchange a few words. That doesn't cost us anything.
For years, I just used to pass them systematically, and then in the last few years, I've come to the realization that just the acknowledgement of the shared human condition with somebody that I meet on the street, just to acknowledge them, even if I don't give them anything, but just the eye contact, and even but not that I know they exist.
Yeah.
I think that's worth a lot.
It's definitely worth a lot in human contact. And then our social, political, analytical mind can also be engaged, because we're going to see a lot more of these people on the street. And they're going to be veterans. It's going to be a direct result of a war that's being waged still in our name. That you could say, and this is, my particular event, we've allowed to go on, although many people have done their best to stop it, and that it's not completely within our power. But so, if you want to think more deeply, the question is, how have I co-created the reality, not out of guilt, but out of a kind of real wide view? How have I co-created a reality that is producing the circumstances like this for people? So that's another way, broader. So each of us can only see as far and as deeply as our eye of practice goes. So this is why we try to see deeply. This is how we try to see our connection to people. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for your wonderful talk.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have a skillful strategy for dealing with schizophrenics on the street?
No, but I don't think it's any different. And I also think sometimes you may have to protect yourself. Sometimes it's just, there's so much anger that you can encounter, and you're probably not going to be able to disarm that person because they're encapsulated in their own reality. But if there is a wish, if you're attuned, you can see if there's some part of them that is desiring to connect. If you can find that, then connect. But I think you have to maintain your boundaries as well, and your sense of personal safety. Yeah.
I'm honored. Thank you. I feel honored that you came today and talked so beautifully. Thank you.
I hope it was different than last time. I don't remember. Your memory might be better than mine.
Had to have been different.
Yeah.
Because of the conditions.
Yeah.
So, my mother thinks we're both 12 or 13 years older. I just want to make a little bit of pitch for the Buddhist Peace Fellowship.
Yeah.
First of all, to tell you that I think we regularly contribute money.
Fantastic. Great.
Secondly, I want to just speak about two activities that I'm engaged in relating to the Buddhist Peace Fellowship. One is the weekly vigil at 12 o'clock at the old Federal Building.
Oh, that's still happening.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
And
Great.
it still says endorsed by the Buddhist Peace Fellowship.
Right.
Even though only 2 or 3 of us that go, but they're mostly Quakers. God bless them.
Quaker. It's like Lenny Bruce said. Lenny Bruce said, all Italians are Jews. It's like all Quakers are Buddhists.
The only problem with sitting with the Quakers in their meetings is that periodically somebody gets up and interrupts the beautiful silence and talks about God.
Don't cling to the silence.
I also wanted to speak, because we'll be recruiting new people, there's a thing called a GI Rights Hotline, which you also have endorsed in the fellowship, which is an opportunity to speak to service people who are having difficulties in the military of a variety of kinds.
Yeah.
Usually because they're coming up against a very powerful culture that doesn't want to give them their rights and whatever. And so that's an opportunity to spend a couple hours a week on a hotline answering questions for which you're trained to answer.
Right.
So I'd like, if anybody's interested, there'll be some recruitment literature because they're going to start training, I think, in late May.
That's really great. I mean, this is a very essential act of turning towards people who we may not otherwise see or encounter, and you'll find there's something incredibly rich and enlivening in that, and you actually can make a difference. You really
Especially
can.
when you're talking, if you really feel the communication with somebody from Texas who isn't used to combating authority.
Right.
It's a very distinct experience.
Right. So thank you. That's great. Maybe one more? Yeah.
Something I struggle with is, seeing suffering and either on a large scale or a small scale and trying to decide what course of action. And the reason why I struggle with it is if you have a friend or a family member and you take the time to get to know them, you just see the complexity
That's right.
of understanding an individual, and then you see the way your own life kind of filters even how you see them. And then if you decide on what course of action do I take in terms of a war or Mideast conflict or something, how do you see suffering clearly so you know what course of action to take?
I think it really helps it does help to work very closely and personally, rather than, so any place that you plunge in is really valuable, and any place that you plunge in develops your capacity for both looking deeply and holding something wider. So, some of us are not going to take on, say, the issue of Palestine and Israel, or Darfur, or or the war in Iraq. But I just, I hold those loosely in my mind. And sometimes I'm back, but my effort tends to be with what I can engage in personally, because yes, there's all the complexity of the world in any particular relationship. So I think the more you turn towards that, and it's hard because there's so much information coming in that it's overwhelming. So, but what I would advise is plunge in anywhere. Take that leap and don't get caught in so much in trying to prioritize. That may not be entirely helpful. There is no real answer to that, but you have to have the capacity to act, to act widely before I think you can do so. So you develop that capacity in relation to yourself and in relation to those around you, whether they're family members or just even immediate social circumstances or ills. So I think that's probably where we'll stop. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you. And David, should I leave you this, or shall I, Howard? I can.
From you afterwards.
Yeah, and Howard, I'll email you the whole thing, and you can put it up.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah.
Are there any announcements? My host, perhaps.
Yes. Good morning. I'm King Lassiter, and I'm the host this morning, and welcome to all of you. I hope you will stay for the social hour and enjoy refreshment and tea. And if you use teacups, please wash them and put them away. We also have sign-up sheets, so if you'd like to stay in touch with the group or receive our newsletters, please leave your name and street address and email address on the sign-up sheet. Third, there usually is a group of people who go out to have lunch after the meeting, and the group usually meet around 12:30, just inside or outside of the door. So if you're interested, please look for the group or let me know so that I can locate the group. And finally, I'll be coming around with a data ball to collect your donation during the social hour. Suggested amount is $5 to $8, but we'll be happy to accept any amount, especially not above the suggested amount. So again, thank you very much.
On the 18th of this month,
April 18th, Saturday. The Buddhist Fellowship is going to be having a day-long meditation retreat here at the center from 10 to 4:30. It's going to be sitting meditation, walking meditation. There's going to be a Qigong teacher. There's going to be some small group discussion, large group discussion. It's going to be a catered lunch, and there's also going to be a Sufi ritual at the end that is quite amazing. So it's going to be a chance for us to deepen our practices together and individually. And I know there's been, I think recently, a questionnaire that went out and people expressed an interest that we have a day-long like this. And so this is the first one that we've done, so we hope there will be some interest and people will come. It's from 10 to 4:30, and the cost is $20 just to cover the food and the rental of the place. And so to pay, Ray Dyer is accepting the contributions, and it could be check or cash, check payable to GBF. It'd be nice to know how many people are coming. We need to know so we could let the caterer know how much food to prepare. So we'll be having lunch together and meditating and having community day, the 18th, 2 weeks from yesterday.
Yes, sir. In terms of the Dawn Bowl, I just want to say that because of the robustness of this community, every year for the past 3 years, we've been able to give $500 to the Buddhist Peace Fellowship.
Fantastic.
So let you all just fly open. Also, on a personal note, Bill Childs and I sang in the San Francisco Choral Society, and last night we did the first of 2 concerts for the Mozart's Requiem at Calvary Presbyterian on Fillmore at Clay, and it was hair-raisingly great. And, instant standing ovations. Your last chance is this afternoon at 4. Box office opens at 2:30.
What is that church?
It's on Fillmore at Clay. It's a big old barn.
You said 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, this Tuesday, Pico Iyer and another guy are going to be speaking at Herbst about the Dalai Lama. It's being sponsored by Shambhala Sun magazine, which is a gorgeous Buddhist magazine published by No College Health. That's at 8 o'clock.
One of our song members, Philip Rossetti, is opening a photography exhibit this afternoon at 708 Montgomery Street at a gallery, and it will be running for how long, Philip?
Through April. Through April.
Through April. It's about 600 photographs. It's really neat. You might want to check it out.
I'll pay you the $10 after
There's also the Dalai Lama is going to be in Berkeley at the Greek Theater April 25th. And I think most of the tickets are gone. However, if anybody could try, might be a member of the Himalayan Society, you can call them. I think they have tickets that are available. And some of you might be members without knowing about it if you've ever been to one of their events.
I think it's the Himalayan Foundation, right?
The Himalayan Foundation,
Yeah.
Sorry. And I found out I was a member when I didn't really know, but at some point I remember. So if you can give them a call or ask around, it'll be April 25th at the Greek Theater in Berkeley campus.
Just about that retreat, there are descriptive flyers, gold, out by the Donna Bowl, which has Ray's address. If you want to send in a check. Thanks.
Yes, I'm not only host, but also a host coordinator, and I just wanted to let you know there are a couple of vacancies now on the hosting team, so if you're interested, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei Senauke, like Milwaukee. On behalf of the Sangha, it's a privilege to have you here, and we just got to get you back more frequently.
I'm happy to come.
It's been a delight. Next week, we will be blessed with the presence of an absolutely world-famous Dharma teacher, David Lewis.
Who's that?
Be in our midst, and so we look forward to that time together next week.
We gather in a circle and help us dedicate merit.
As we breathe together, we realize that our breath is part of a vast, seamless fabric of life that covers the planet. Every breath that has been breathed is part of the air that we breathe this moment. Every breath that we breathe is part of the air that all beings breathe. The merit of this activity is boundless and unknowable. We freely give it out and take it in to benefit the numberless sentient beings of our own mind, the numberless beings of this Saha world. May they live in safety. May they know joy. May they know freedom. May they be well.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.